Hello, welcome to the inside of the new Range Rover. Now this is a Land Rover that, to my mind, doesn't need reinvention. In the last half a decade or so, Land Rover has kind of reinvented the Defender into a very different car than it was before. The Discovery 5 is not the same car as the Discovery 4 by any means, but the Range Rover is kind of the car it has always been. It is the original luxury SUV, they would say, and it has been that for nearly 5 decades. So the idea is new Range Rover, like old Range Rover, but better. So is it? There are two variants. There's a standard wheelbase and a long wheelbase. There are loads of engine options, from very ordinary 6-cylinder twin turbocharged, very conventional ICE stuff, with or without a mild hybrid, depending on which market you're in. In the UK, it's all mild hybrid stuff. Then there is a couple of plug-in hybrids. There's a full electric version coming, and there is this. This car is a short wheelbase, conventional regular wheelbase, whatever, first edition with a 4.4 litre twin turbocharged V8 engine with 530 metric horsepower. It is luxury. Range Rovers start at £94,400 in the UK, so they're all basically 100 grand plus. And for that, you get a new 80% aluminium architecture. There's a steel front bulkhead, there's a steel ring around the lower A pillar, there's one at the C pillar, there's one at the D pillar. To make this car stiffer, they say it's got 33 kilonewtons per degree of torsional rigidity. So if you put one bar on the front axle and one bar on the other, you'd have to put in 33 kilonewtons before the whole thing twisted by a degree. It's a big car. So as this wheelbase form, it's more than 5 metres, which is a little bit longer than it was before, and then the long wheelbase is 200 millimetres longer again. So it's a big car. It's also a wide car, 2.2 metres across the body, and it's also quite a heavy car. It goes from about 2,300 kilos all the way up to 2,700. And because this is a conventional internally combusted one, without a mild hybrid, without the long wheelbase, it's actually one of the, even though it's a V8, it's one of the lighter engines. So as well as a lot of different engines, there's quite a lot going on underneath the skin too. So all Range Rovers ride on air springs, which is no great surprise. That can drop from the standard ride height that I'm in now by 50 millimetres, or it can raise by 135 mil for maximum off-road articulation. There are 48 volt anti-roll bars, front and rear. The sat-nav reads the road ahead, so it primes the roll bars and the springs and dampers to go, oh, okay, there might be a corner coming up. It doesn't actually read the road, it just knows from the nav that what's coming. Then there is active rear steer on every single new Range Rover, which can give 7.3 degrees of opposite turn in manoeuvring. And, as standard, there's an electronically controlled limited slip differential. There's electrically assisted power steering, there is brake-by-wire, so there's loads of systems to try and put together to try and make this car work as one. So as with the Ferrari 296 GTB that I reviewed not very long ago on this channel. If you like and subscribe, you'll never miss one. There is a lot to integrate together to make it work properly. Now this is the first regular wheelbase Range Rover that I've been in. I like it rather more than a couple of the long wheelbase ones that I've been in already. So let's talk about the interior for a start. There's quite a bold swathe across the dash, and then it's got some sort of vertical bits cutting through it. And this is a kind of continuation of a theme they put into a Range Rover in the early 2000s, I think. They said slightly yacht inspired, actually. It's not quite as bold as it was then, but the material quality is mostly good. Big touchscreen in the middle. Okay, fine. It's probably asked to do a bit too much, but as touchscreens go, it's not too bad. There are still separate controls for the heater and the volume control and that sort of thing. So, and there are shortcuts on the steering wheel. So, ergonomically, it's pretty good. Material quality is pretty good. And then we come to the way it drives. As I say, I've been in a couple of long wheelbase cars already this morning, and I'm not as convinced with the long one as I am with this regular wheelbase car. This blends things really nicely. The ride is good. The maximum wheel size is now 23 inch, which is big, and you know, it's important for the looks apparently, but actually, when you speak to some of the engineers, they go, well, yeah, a bit more tyre sidewall is not a bad thing on a car like this. And in this car, it's a stiff shell, and those are big wheels, and it's on air springs, so it's mostly very isolated, it's mostly very flat. You occasionally get a little sproing, and over some sort of surface imperfections and expansion joints and things like that, you do get a little thump through into the cabin. In this one, it's not too bad. Actually, in a long one, if you're sitting in the back, it can be quite intrusive, can be quite harsh back there. And here we end a phase of wondering, what is it fair to ask an SUV to do? So Jaguar Land Rover recently canned the next generation Jaguar XJ. They were going to make it, it was going to be all electric, and they've shelved it. I do wonder if, as a result, the Range Rover is being asked to extend its working practice into being a bit of a luxury car. Yeah, we'll put people in the back, we'll get an SV version with just 2 seats back there and a table back there, but you sit in the back and you go, this is not refined enough, this is not luxurious enough. And I wonder if part of that reason is because this is still a Range Rover and it's expected to do tremendous things off-road as well as be a nice road car up here. So let's focus on what it's like up here, what this version is like in this seat. And it's nice. That ride is composed, it's good, it turns nicely, things are integrated really well. So when I'm turning, and the roll bars are obviously stiffening and the rear wheels are doing their thing, it's got a really nice natural feel to it. And I like it very much. Really, I like it very much. It feels like a much nicer car than a couple of the long ones that I was in earlier. We'll have a go in a D350 diesel later. I'm not going to judge a car before I've driven it, but with the old Range Rover, my feeling was that the less you spent, the better car you got. We tested one against a Bentley Bentayga probably last year, or maybe the year before, relatively recently, facelifted Bentayga. And the Range Rover was, for me, the better choice over the Bentley, because Bentley asks that Bentayga to do so many things. It asks to be slightly dynamic, it asks it to be a luxury car, it also asks it to be a 3.5-ton tow car. And no matter how much technology you throw at a product, there's only so much a vehicle can do before it becomes slightly compromised. You know, if you're asking it to do all those things around a spider chart, there's only so many things it can actually manage. Whereas the Range Rover was allowed to breathe a bit more freely, a bit more easily. It was allowed to be the SUV, the big, comfortable, working vehicle that you can also take to the opera that it always was. It doesn't try to do too much. My feeling with this car is that its MO has been extended just in some ways, and it's not necessarily fulfilling them all. I think, as before, the best Range Rover is the ones that is asked to do a little bit less than the others, and that means this short one with just slightly less asked of it, and then it's lovely. This is really nice. This is absolutely lovely. And I haven't spent loads of time on it, but if you ask me what car in its class I would rather be driving right now, I can't think of too many. Whereas if I was sitting in the back of one, I could think of several different vehicles I'd rather be sitting in the back of. The Range Rover is best left to being a Range Rover. And it is still spectacular off-road. I have not yet driven it very far off-road.
So let's talk off-road credentials. These angles and numbers are for a short wheelbase Range Rover, although ground clearance on both is up to 295mm. Now for context, that's a tiny bit more than a Land Rover Defender and quite a lot more than Mercedes-Benz G-Class. The approach angle at the front is 35 degrees, which is less than a Defender but more than the Mercedes. The ramp or breakover angle is 27.7 degrees, which is again sits between the two competitors, but there's not a huge amount in it, and a long wheelbase one will be considerably worse. Departure angle at the back is 29 degrees. Now that's less good than both a Defender and a G-Class, but it can afford 900mm of water, same as the Defender and quite a lot more than the Mercedes. Now all Range Rovers except the plug-ins can tow 3,500 kilograms, and the plug-in hybrids can pull 2,500 kilos.
When we get the car in the UK, we will do a big off-road test. We'll take it to our quarry that we do, and we'll take it up against not just the obvious competition, we'll put it up against the best stuff there is, and we'll see how it gets on. But in the meantime, know that the new Range Rover, in the locations where it is allowed to pick up where it was before, being a brilliant country SUV, posh country SUV, it is still one of the best in the world.
Thanks for joining us. There will be lots more on the new Range Rover to come when we get the car in the UK. Now, if you subscribe and click the bell icon, you won't miss a thing. In the meantime, we are at autocar.co.uk all the time, on digital subscription and in print every week since 1895. And we're on all the socials. See you next time.